Joining me by phone is one of my favorite members of Congress. He happens to be a member of Congress from Georgia, the ranking Republican on the Judiciary Committee. It would be Congressman Doug Collins. How are you?
I'm great, Eric. How are you today?
I'm doing well. So, are you enjoying the return of Congress to Washington?
Oh, the circus is back in town, and the ring clown Nadler is he's just setting it up for this week. It is just amazing when you get up here. Back being in Georgia for the last little bit, seeing real people do real work, real jobs, and then coming back up here, it's just like, wow, it's pretty amazing.
Yeah, I bet so. Listen, I want to somewhat ambush you, if I can, with this story real quick from CNN where it looks like CNN rushed out to blame the president for a spy being or a source being abstracted from Russia. Now, the New York Times, the Washington Post, and others are all coming out saying, wait a second, it was the amplitude of media exposure that undermined this guy's safety, not the president. Yeah,
well, look, let's start off number one, just as I've talked about before this morning. CNN is the same network that hired Andy McCabe. Okay, let's get this is a guy who should be prosecuted very shortly for his role in the cabal he started over at the DOJ. So, CNN's credibility here and hatred of this president is pretty obvious. But it's really concerning when they talk about it the way they did in such matter-of-fact ways. And we have, and you know this very well, in the environment we're in right now, people will just accept that as fact, especially if they want to hate, if they don't like the president, they think this is a way to get at him. But it also is deeper in the sense that we're exposing some of these things that, the CIA took the sort of incredible step of coming out and saying, like, this has got a lot of problems to it. But, for our network around the world, our network still in Russia, those kind of things, those assets, could be compromised by this. So there's a lot to be said here, but it is concerning the way it's come out, and especially to be rebuffed so quickly by even other media sources.
Yeah, particularly when the media is so buddy-buddy these days in their antagonism of the president. To have the New York Times and the Washington Post come out so quickly and say, wait a second, guys, really was striking.
Yeah, it was. And I think, but it brought up something that I've thought about this morning, and then I was, or somebody had asked me about it, and I talked about it. They said, well, the Russian interference. I said, look, if anybody believes that Russian interference just started in 2016, they've been sleeping in a different fantasy land, because they've been interfering with elections for years, not only in America but across the world, and trying to do it. And this is why, for me, it's so important to take up the Foreign Election Interference Acts and stuff that we put forward as bills. But I can't get my chairman to actually focus on what Mueller actually found. They're wanting to focus on everything else. But that it does highlight from this story that there is that interference model that we should be taking up, and we're not.
Right. Well, in that regard, what is your agenda now that Congress is back in session? There are all these rumors the Democrats want to find a path towards impeachment, and you as both a ranking member on Judiciary and also a senior member of the Georgia delegation, what are you focusing on as Congress gets back in session?
Well, what I'd like to be focusing on is getting the trade agreement with Canada and Mexico passed. That's number one. I think that is a big deal for Georgia. It's a big deal for the country, and I think it goes a long way into helping our trade systems. I think we need, on the Judiciary Committee, I'd love to work more on the intellectual property aspects of our dealings with China. I think we're in a good position now to actually begin to put in some restraint and to deal with the theft. That's something I've dealt with a lot. We passed the Trade Secrets Act a few years ago, which was a huge step on helping companies protect what is, not patentable or copyrightable, but it's something that is it's the secret formula for Coke. That's a trade secret. It's not it's something we did. So these are the kind of things we could be working on. I'd love to work on immigration, Eric. I think we can actually find a path to deal with the border situation through Flores, the asylum, the trafficking victims, but also add in a fix, that we could work on with DACA. There's things that we could manage here if we were willing to sit down and do it. The reality is, though, none of that's going to happen. Right. And that's become the problem that I have so far.
Well, it is a level of frustration. And now, of course, you've got the president has reassigned money within the Pentagon to start building the wall. The Supreme Court seems to signal that this is perfectly within his right to do. Congressional Democrats are happy, man. I know nothing in Georgia is going to be reassigned. Most of it's going to be foreign. But it really is striking to see Democrats go from this is a manufactured crisis to this is a crisis and we need to do something, but not that, to the president now finding a way to fix the problem. And the Democrats don't want to sit at the table and try to find the money.
Well, they don't. And this is the thing that I tell people all the time. This president is willing probably more so than even other previous administrations, to actually find real solutions. He's willing to sit down and give on issues that have been harder for Republicans to give on in the past. He's willing to take on some ideas that could find a common ground. And the Democrats are simply throwing an issue away that they have, quote, owned, if you would, and they're saying that there's problems. But it shows something, Eric. And this people listening to your show need to understand this. I don't care what any Democrat tells you. They enjoy immigration as an issue. They do not enjoy it as a solution. They love keeping these immigrants as pawns. And if you don't believe me, just look. All I ask is don't see their rhetoric. Look at their actions. And there's many members like myself, the president, and others willing to work on these issues, go a little further than maybe some would think, or at least talk about it, and then find a workable solution that in the end helps our country, helps our businesses, and helps these people who are caught in limbo. To simply keep dehumanizing these people by having hearings and talking about a problem but no solution, that's the tragedy we're in right now in the U.S.
Well, in that regard, let me move into gun control real quick, because I keep hearing from people even inside the White House that the National Rifle Association is a lot of internal turmoil right now, and they're trying to find some way to move forward on something, and no one seems to know what to do on our side, or at least certainly the red flag laws. It seems like we're seeing Democrats flag everybody these days to try to keep guns out of their hands. Where do you go with this?
Well, it's going to be concerning because today we'll start this afternoon at 2 o'clock. They're going to bring up the Democrats are bringing 3 gun bills up, none of which will actually, frankly, solve. In fact, they cause more problems. In fact, one of the Georgia legislators, Lucy McBath, has a red flag bill that is going to be on the agenda today. The problem is it just tramples, due process. It tramples. I mean, it doesn't provide any protection. If I got mad at you, we were neighbors, and I got mad at you and said, I saw you outside doing this, go get his guns. Nothing to protect due process. Nothing to protect cost in states like New York or others where they could just, go to court. The fees would be so high to get your guns back you never would. What we're seeing, I've talked to the president about this on several occasions. We've had my staff has had a lot of conversation with the White House about this. We're trying to say, okay, there's real things that we need to do. Like, one, let's increase prosecutions. Did you know that and I'll use an example in Chicago, less than 40 gun crimes were actually prosecuted in a town that had over 500 and something murders. I mean, we're not focusing on the very things that actually could, straw purchases and these kind of things that actually do take guns off the streets. And, with the community policing, we had to put the money back in to the community policing this year that had been stripped out by the Democrats. This is some of the stuff that actually works to prevent gun crimes, not just the high-profile ones, but all gun crimes. We need to make it where we can promote what we have done instead of constantly being on the defensive with an emotional argument that does nothing but tries to make people feel good.
Well, and I guess that whether it's immigration or it's guns or you name the issue right now, there do seem to be a lot of emotional arguments to keep people whipped up into a frenzy for 2020 as opposed to actually solving the problem.
Oh, exactly. And that's the part that I frankly just accused. I was yesterday, somebody asked me that, and I just said, look, I don't know when it happened. It's been over the progress of 8 months in the Judiciary Committee, but they have now become the political arm of the DCCC. And it's just their press releases. It's just, again, stuff that never has a chance of moving. And this is the part for an old school legislator like myself, Eric, someone who has done big pieces. Criminal justice was our bill. Music modernization, updating the Copyright Act, doing privacy, the Cloud Act. Those are big pieces of legislation we've worked on the last 6 years and gotten signed into law. For someone who thinks that this place is still about legislating, this has been one of the hardest years I have been in because Democratic partners that I've been able to work with before, even when we have the White House on board and the Senate, it's just finding anybody that wants to tackle these issues. We can't find them because it has become so focused on let's do everything we can to make sure the president's defeated next year.
Well, speaking of next year, I feel obligated to ask you about this open Senate seat that's going to be on the ballot next year, and rumors circulating that someone might be interested in possibly being that person.
Well, I have a pretty big job up here right now, and I'm focused on it. I mean, of course, I would. I think it would be something that would interest me. Yes, I'm not going to say it would not, but. I think that's the governor's choice. I respect, the governor, but we're working to continue this conservative message, and we could do that statewide, or we can continue to do it where we're at. I think the focus on Georgia is keeping it Republican and making sure that we're able to fight back and fight in real ways against I heard you came in on the John Ossoff score. We need to be able to stand up and have legitimate conservative arguments with the left and it be on the facts, and it be on the issues, and it be on repealing to what matters to people. So we'll see what happens on that, and I'm sure we'll have a lot of conversations on that. But I want to say one thing. Johnny Isakson, the loss of Johnny Isakson in Georgia, for a man of many of us who, and you included, have watched him for many years, there's not a better human being than Johnny Isakson in the sense of what he cares about and how he is, conducted himself. And I think we all stand on his shoulders.
Well, okay, let me ask you about that. One of the things that has really been, even for a lot of conservatives sometimes who have issues with Isakson, there's not a soul on planet Earth who can disagree with the fact that Johnny Isakson has invested his heart and soul in VA reform. With his departure from Washington, it seems like that sets, and I realize there's no indispensable person, but this has really been his issue. Where do we go on VA reform without Johnny there?
Yeah, it's going to be a great thing to look at. I mean, he and I have been, I've been privileged to work with him on a lot of those issues, but yeah, he leaves a void in VA reform because many times we think in DC that, you just simply throw money at a problem. And this is what he and I had talked about before one time. He actually brought up this hearing from a few years ago, and I had forgotten about. He and I did a hearing in Georgia, in Gainesville, about this. And the issue is we've now raised the money level in VA, but we've never inherently changed the structure. And I think that's what he's been pushing for so long, is it's not a matter of money anymore. It's a matter of structure and planning. And, yeah, he's going to leave a big void, and I'm concerned from the Democratic perspective in the House now with Paul Taco he's the chairman over here. We don't have the same, ability to influence frankly, if anybody wants to look at government, run medicine, that's the VA. I mean, and that's what we're seeing. And he's been such a strong advocate for that change, and it will be missed.
Congressman, listen, we're about to head into a commercial break, but I sure appreciate you stopping by.
Well, it's always good to talk to you, Eric. I hope everything's going well.
Thanks, you too. Congressman Doug Collins from Northeast Georgia. He is considered to be the front runner among those in the know of people the governor is eyeing for Johnny Isakson's seat in the United States Senate. In the meantime, ranking Republican on the